Hola, I am Paddy from GNOD, and you are listening to Doomed and Stoner Latin America.
Hola, bienvenidos a Doom and Stone Latinoamérica. Mi nombre es Román Tamayo y continuamos con esta serie de especiales alrededor del mundo conociendo a nuestras bandas favoritas. El día de hoy vamos a viajar hacia Inglaterra. Vamos a escuchar una de las bandas más brutales que he visto en vivo, una de las bandas más increíbles. Ellos son GNOD, es una banda de Salford, de Manchester, Inglaterra. Se formaron en el 2006 y el día de hoy vamos a tener la oportunidad de platicar con Paddy y con Chris Haslam. Así que espero disfrute mucho esto. La verdad es que es una entrevista muy larga, pero creo que es de las más fructíferas, de las más increíbles que hemos podido hacerle a alguna banda. La forma de trabajar, la forma de enfocarse, la forma de hacer música es muy, muy especial. Y bueno, voy a traducirles algunas preguntas porque la entrevista es muy, muy larga. Así que bueno, la primera pregunta para Not fue si nos podían decir un poco de cómo fue su acercamiento hacia la música y qué momento o qué artista los impactó para que pudieran tomar un instrumento. Y bueno, Paddy dice que fueron muchas bandas en realidad, pero tocar un instrumento fue algo que le llamó la atención cuando era muy niño. Él veía a gente mayor que podía tocar la guitarra y dice que cuando tenía 9 años empezó a hurgar en los discos de su mamá y encontró uno de Neil Young que le llamó la atención y bueno, eso fue algo que explotó. Igual dice que empezó a escuchar Van Morrison, mucho folk de Irlanda y la primera canción que aprendió en la guitarra fue The House of the Rising Sun de los Animals y bueno, esta canción le abrió la percepción porque se dio cuenta que él podía tocar la guitarra pero cantar y eso era algo como wow, algo muy increíble. El otro lado, Chris dice que él empezó más o menos como a los 13 14 años a escuchar metal. Angus Young fue como algo que lo impactó a AC/DC, pero cuando vi a Cliff Burton de Metallica tocar, dijo, wow, esto es lo que quiero hacer. Y bueno, inmediatamente también estuvo la conexión con Steve Harris de Iron Maiden, pero cuando empezó a escuchar Joy Division y empezó a tocar canciones de Joy Division, supo que ese era el camino. Cualquiera podía tocar un instrumento, era fácil y bueno, eso fue lo que determinó su camino en este mundo de la música. Y bueno, ya más enfocado a GNOD, les preguntamos un poco cómo era su escena local y cómo este proyecto nació, si nos pueden contar a grandes rasgos un poco de GNOD. Y bueno, Paddy dice que primero la banda no era un colectivo como lo es ahora, era solo un grupo de personas desilusionadas por la música, se juntaban a llamear, echaban unos tragos, fumaban ahí algo de maldad y pues bueno, con el tiempo la banda fue creciendo. Su mayor ilusión era sacar quizás un disco y no más, pero bueno, en ese momento empezaron a llegar personas, había como 6 personas que estaban en la banda y bueno, Chris complementa esta información, dice que en todo este tiempo fácil han pasado 15 personas por GNOD, o sea, eso es una cosa brutal, monumental y bueno, entre todos llamean, dice que de todos estos 15 son como 4 con los que lo hacen de manera constante, con los que están en comunicación creando. Y bueno, también Paddy dice que los cambios en la banda también se deben a accidentes felices, por decirlo de alguna forma. Dice que en algún momento, por ejemplo, Chris no podía tocar el bajo y empezaron a usar sintetizadores. El baterista también tuvo algún problema y metieron drum machine. Así que esos accidentes han cambiado y han definido el sonido de la banda, el rumbo de la banda. Y relacionado a esto también les preguntamos la evolución del sonido de la banda de GNOD, porque no es una banda que puedas encasillar en un disco, si es stoner, si es doom, si es noise, cambian constantemente. Entonces la evolución, dice Chris, que bueno, es dictada por el medio ambiente, depende de lo que pase, depende de los cambios que hayas, como ellos se adaptan prácticamente. Por ejemplo, Paddy en un principio utilizaba todos los amplificadores que podía porque estaba siempre experimentando. El sonido evoluciona de acuerdo a la situación y bueno, por eso también ellos tocan muy fuerte. Y una cosa muy, muy importante que menciona Paddy aquí, y eso algo, un tip increíble para todas las bandas, es el ingeniero de sonido. En 2012 ellos contrataron un ingeniero de sonido para el show de Radburn, a Andy, y bueno, ahí se dieron cuenta lo importante que era tener a alguien con ellos, porque es de donde proviene la magia. Y bueno, Andy ha estado con GNOD por 10 años, hace que cualquier cuarto pueda sonar bien. Y no se trata solamente de subirle el volumen, sino tiene que haber dinámica, tiene que haber una experiencia que el público pueda obtener. Y el ingeniero es parte de esa experiencia. Cambia totalmente el show. Y bueno, ahí nos preguntaba si nosotros en esta gira de Venom habíamos tenido un ingeniero. Dijimos que no, pero que aprendimos mucho viendo a GNOD. Eso fue algo muy revelador para nosotros. Así que para Paddy, para nosotros también lo creemos de esta manera. Un ingeniero no está parte de la banda, es un miembro de la banda y no se debe de separar entre banda e ingeniero. Un ingeniero es el que le da constancia a tu sonido y te hace sonar bien en todos lados y en cualquier situación. Y bueno, finalmente en esta primera parte de la entrevista les preguntamos sobre el equipo que usan, de dónde proviene la magia de GNOD. Y bueno, Paddy dice que no es una persona muy técnica, así que no tiene un sonido como tan particular, tiene ciertos pedales que le ayudan y bueno, dos de esos son pedales de Moose, que es una marca de Dublín, y bueno, ha hecho pedales para gente como Dylan Carlson de Earth. Y bueno, también utiliza el Apocalipsis de Dead by Audio. Y bueno, de amplificadores tiene un SBT. Y en este último tour usó un Mark Bass con un gabinete 8x10. Su guitarra es una que compró en internet, barítona, y dice que ama mucho su tono, que no es nada especial. Y bueno, cuando es un show de noise o más electrónico, bueno, tiene varios sintetizadores. Y bueno, Chris se ríe, ¿no? Y dice, tengo un pedal Signature y eso es todo lo que necesito. Y dice, siempre quise decir eso, no sé, hace burla eso. Pero bueno, también dice que tiene pedales de Moose. Y bueno, Moose puede construir casi cualquier pedal. Si ellos tienen una idea, van con Moose y encuentra el pedal perfecto para hacer realidad esos sonidos. Así que, bueno, esos son sus pedales. Y su bajo es un Fender Precision que compró en Manchester. Es un Fender americano. Y bueno, son las armas de guerra. Así que bueno, vamos a escuchar esta parte de palabras de Chris y de Paddy. Y ya continuamos aquí en su Doom and Stone Latinoamérica. Ya se la sabe, trépele, sáquese algo, gócela.
Wow. Okay. Jesus. Yeah. That's a tough question, man. Which band had a significant? Oh God. There were so many. But I guess the truth of it, to play an instrument, was probably just seeing people I know play music and hear them play music and wanting to do it and picking up an acoustic guitar and starting to play music when I was a kid. That would have been the early beginnings of it. But I mean, man, from a very young age, I was listening to a lot of music. And I guess the most kind of poignant thing that happened to me was when I was 9 years of age, and I didn't go to school. I can't remember. I bunked off school, and I raided my mother's record collection, and I listened to Neil Young. What album was it now? Oh, fucking hell, what album was it? I can't remember what album it was. It was after the Gold Rush. It was after the Gold Rush, yeah. And at 9 years of age, it just clicked, and then I was like, "Holy shit! Like, this is the thing." And I was basically kind of been obsessed with music since then, and in some way, Neil Young, I guess, has somehow informed what I do musically. It's in there. So, I mean, for me, from an early age, that was it. It was Neil Young, and it was Van Morrison's Astral Weeks, actually. That was another record that was randomly in my mother's record collection. I think it was my father's record collection, but my mother had acquired it after they'd split up. And it had Astral Weeks, and after the Gold Rush, and at 9 years of age, my mind was blown listening to those records. And yeah, that was it. That was when I started to play guitar, really.
Wow.
And that was.
How about you, Chris?
For me, at a young age, I was just really into pop music, and playing music was just an alien concept to me. I just never worked out how they did it. And then when I was about 13, 14, I started getting into heavy metal, and Angus Young, I think, for the first person who was like, fucking hell, I wish I could do that, and then after a bit, I think I really identified with like Cliff Burton and what he was doing on a bass, and I think that was the kind of first thing where I thought, like, wow, that sounds amazing, just the sound of his bass, and these kind of, well, yeah, Cliff Burton and Steve Harris really from Iron Maiden. And then But it was only until I heard like Joy Division that I thought, I can actually play this. It's dead easy.
Yeah, I think also, yeah, in regards to playing, I think it was similar to Chris. Like when I heard these Neil Young records and the Van Morrison record, I didn't really know how to go about doing music at all. But I think it was even just the simplicity of hearing like folk music, like either like Irish folk music like Christy Moore or even like Bob Dylan as a kid, that made me think, oh yeah, I could sit down with a guitar and probably write these tunes. And in fact, my mother, when I started playing guitar, my mother kind of forced me to learn. I say forced me, I was a willing participant, but forced me to learn a track called The House of the Rising Sun. I can't remember who that wrote that track, but it's like an old 60s kind of folk track. And that was the first track I learned to play on guitar. And it got me hooked, because straight away when I started to play it, I realized that I could actually sing along with it. And then all of a sudden I was singing along to what I was playing, and it was like an absolute revelation to me, you know. So, because there's one thing playing a guitar, and then it's another thing playing and singing with it. That's when it really clicks. You know.
Yeah, and it's not easy. Not everybody can do that. So it's like a special talent or gift to say something. Yeah. So, well, in GNOD was formed in 2006. So can you give us an overview of the band's early years and how you turned this project into a collective?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of started out as a collective, because it started out as a bunch of people who were in between bands, let's say, or had been part of bands that were finishing up, and everybody was a little bit bored with what they were doing, and maybe a little bit sort of you know, kind of disillusioned by music in some way. And so the band started out as a bit of a loose collective, because I think we were kind of like into this idea of just free jamming, but also kind of safety in numbers. Like, you know, the more people that were there were jamming, the more chance of there actually being some interesting music happening. But it started out really as just a kind of like a weed smoking jam band, really, with very little ambition to do anything except a few gigs and release a record. But it was only a kind of a collective for maybe 2 years. I say a collective, I mean, maybe it still is a collective, because there's so many people involved who come in and out of it. And it's got a bit of a collective mentality, I guess, still. But the early years were definitely just about the more the merrier. Let's go. Let's just fucking see what happens. And then it kind of, we kind of just started to get loads of gigs, and people started to stop coming, and it whittled down to like a core of like 5 or 6 people. But even still, I'm more of a core of 2 or 3 people with an ever-changing cast, but always only about 6 people in the band. And and then the sound just keeps morphing and keeps changing, and that's the approach, and that was the approach and still is the approach, although there's, you know, not as many people involved.
Yeah.
Would you say that's right, Chris? Would you say I was correct?
I mean, the numbers have definitely shrunk. You know, we used to have about a crew of about maybe 12 to 15 people that would come in and out of the band, play certain gigs and then not play other gigs, come on some tours, not come on other tours. But there was a kind of a more of a stable core to begin with as well. There was like about maybe 4 of us that always jammed together, always would be part and play every gig. So yeah.
Yeah. And there was also like a kind of a bunch of like happy accidents, for turn of a better phrase, like actual accidents. Like Chris, for example, broke his collarbone. And at that point he couldn't play bass for a while. So that's when we started to mess around with keyboards and synths and that changed the sound. And then our drummer at the time, he got stabbed in the hand and he couldn't play drums for a few months. So that meant we were like, okay, we'll just play a drum machine instead. And that changed things up. So like in the early years, it was kind of like mad sort of approach to just jamming, and then also these accidents that had happened to two core members of the band forced us into approaching the music in a different way again. So yeah, you know, it's a bit like that, really.
Yeah, it's like some accidents, but happy accidents, to say something for the band. So you are one of the most loudest bands that I ever seen in my life, and I'm very shocked. My brother told me about you a couple of years. So I want that you tell us in general words the evolution of the sound of GNOD. I mean, it's very impressive to see you on live. My brother saw you with two drummers. I saw you just with one drummer, but you constantly change the members or the instruments. So it will be amazing to hear how about the evolution of the sound of the band.
Yeah. I mean...
Oh, go on, sorry.
Go on, Chris. No, go on, Chris.
I was just going to say, I think, again, a lot of it happened with happy accidents of things happening which we had to just respond to and carry on. So, yeah, the evolution, I think, has been dictated by the environment a lot that we found ourselves in as we were in the band. So, you know, certain things happened and forced us to change. But, I mean, we've always, from the start, I mean, I think when Paddy first said, you know, I've got this idea of a band called GNOD and we just use all the amps. We'll use every fucking amp in the room and set it up and record something and see what happens, with the belief that something good will come out of it, you know, because we're all just like high off the sound. And I think that has kind of stayed with it a lot. We always liked the music to be at a certain volume for it to work. It couldn't work in like a small, quiet environment. You know, it just wouldn't be GNOD. Although we are trying to think of ways around that at the moment. And to say as well, we have done some ambient bits now and again, but usually not really that planned. Usually just like that's what's going on at the time, and we just kind of fell into it, you know. Not really making like any conscious decisions to go for anything particular. It's usually just as things happen, we respond to the situation. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean also in regards to the evolution of the sound, in 2012 we met who was a guy who became our front of house engineer and still is to this day. And so when we started to work with Andy, and the reason that happened is because we got offered a show at Roadburn Festival, and we really wanted to go there and like really fucking like blow it up, like, you know, blow the roof off the place. And we had a big tour planned around it, and we said, right, we really need to start working with an engineer, because that's where the magic really happens. So Andy became our front of house engineer, and steadily over the last nearly 11 years, 11 years, he has become a very, very important part of the sound, because he's the guy who is helping us to put it out as we imagine it, as we want it to sound out in the room, and as we would want to hear it if we were out in the crowd. He's our ears out there and make sure that it's like a fucking wall of sound. But not only that, has he been good at just turning up the volume, he's also been instrumental in the dynamics of the set and the stuff that he does. Like he does a lot of dubbing effects on the tracks, on the drums. For example, if we don't go out with two drummers, he's almost able to emulate two drummers with his like delay pedals and stuff, and just create that extra dynamic. So having a guy on the desk, a front of house engineer, is a game changer for any touring band, really. If you're out touring and you're playing gigs to whether it's 50 people, 500 or 2,000 people, your front of house engineer is the guy that's going to be the thing to make the difference at the show. That's how it is. So that as part of the evolution of the sound, Andy, our front of house engineer, is a massive part of that. And you know, I don't know, Roman, when you tour, when you go out, do you have your own engineer?
Sadly not, but we learn a lot from you guys in Desert Fest, especially in Desert Fest Berlin. I was with Juan, and you play, and the sound engineer is another member of the band. The guy is doing the magic.
For
and
sure.
It was like a revelation, you know, because it's, wow, this is one of the loudest bands, one of the most amazing bands, but the sound engineer changed everything in the room. So for us was a really, you know, we open something for us. So yeah, that was really a really good thing that we learned from you guys, actually.
Yeah, cool. I mean, and I can't remember who we learned that from or where we got that idea from, but I mean, it is like that when you have an engineer, a really good engineer who really is a member of the band. Like, we kind of don't believe in this kind of separation of the engineer and the band, because so much relies on the engineer. You know, if something goes wrong, all the pressure's on him. It's a pretty intense role to play in the music, very intense. So yeah, and if you can get a guy who wants to work with you and do that, then you know it's like it steps up the game a bit. It really does step the game up.
It helps achieve a certain consistency as well with the shows, because, like, as you probably know, Roman, if you've not had your own sound engineer, you could do one show and it sounds great, and then you can do another show and it sounds terrible, and you're like, what the fuck? What went on there? You know? But he helps us achieve a kind of consistency from venue to venue. You know, could be a festival, could be a tiny club, and it's always going to be our sound, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Totally. And well, talking about sound, could you briefly tell us what equipment you use for your live performance? Just in general words, maybe some amps, guitars, pedals.
Yeah, but it changes so much, Roman. For me, right, I am not a very technical guy, and I also don't really have like I don't think I have a particular sound. I have a particular pedal or two that I rely on for my guitar sound. One is a pedal made by my friend Moose from Dublin. He's a pedal maker. He makes very, very cool pedals. It's called Moose 23 Moose Effects. And he makes pedals for people like Dylan Carlson and a bunch of people use his stuff now. He's an excellent maker, and he gave me a pedal. I have no idea what it's called or whatever. It's just a handmade thing, and it makes my guitar sound like a fucking chainsaw. And that to me is the ultimate guitar sound. And I use that, and I use a Death by Audio Apocalypse pedal. They're the main things in my guitar sound. And as far as guitar amps go, I've never really been happy with any guitar amp I've had, except for playing through a big bass stack, whether that's a classic SVT, like an old school SVT, or recently on tour I've been using this Mark bass, this little Mark bass amp head through 8x10 cabs, and it sounds incredible because it just gives me a very clean, loud signal of which to process it with my horrible pedals. So as long as I'm getting a nice, strong, bassy, MIDI guitar signal that I can just shove my chainsaw effects through, then I'm pretty happy. And guitar-wise, I just use a piece of shit guitar that I bought on the internet for like 15 quid. That's some kind of bastardized version of a baritone guitar, that I over the years guitar techs have fixed for me or modded for me and improved, and that's the guitar that I use, and I love it because it weighs a ton and it sounds like it weighs a ton. You know, it's yeah. Yeah. But also, I mean, yeah, so that's my guitar sound, but I also have a bit of a thing for certain like sort of synthesizers and stuff like Soma gear. If we're doing NOD electronic stuff, I'll always go for some Soma gear that I've got, like the Lyra 8 or the Yenner or whatever. That Soma stuff is incredible. But yeah, I mean, that's it really. What about you, Chris?
Bass and guitar wise, for ages, my signature pedal. Yeah, right. As if I'm going to fucking say that. No, I use some Moose pedals as well. Moose is a really good pedal builder.
Really good.
I can basically tell him what I want a pedal to do, and he'll build it and sell it me for €8 for cheap. So he's such a fucking great. He's a great person to have like contact for, and his pedals have been brilliant.
Sorry about that.
Whoa, what was that?
It's just a kid. It's just a kid on a quad bike.
Wow, it sounded like the best synth sound you've ever had.
sounded like my guitar.
Yeah. No, we use motorbikes as well. Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing with Moose, though, isn't it? With Moose, because I think with the pedal that Moose gave me, the one that I can't not have in my pedal chain.
Yeah,
I said to him, I want a pedal that sounds like makes my guitar sound like a fucking chainsaw. And he was like, oh yeah, I think I can do one of those for you. And then he handed me
chainsaw.
He handed me this pedal like 3 months later, and I plugged it in, put my guitar through it, and I was like, fucking hell, he's actually done it. He's actually done it. My guitar sounds like a chainsaw. So, yeah.
Did he not just tell you to use a chainsaw?
Well, no, I did at first. Try and use a chainsaw. But it was a little bit risky for, playing on the fret and stuff. It was a bit dodgy.
Get fucking hell, what's his name? Jean Hervé from Faust.
Jean Hervé. But anyway, so that's your signature pedals, Chris.
My signature pedals are Moose pedals. Moose. Go and buy Moose www.
Yeah.
But what bass? Yeah. What bass do you play, Chris? Because you've played the same bass forever, haven't you? You've had the same bass guitar for your whole life.
Years ago, in the mid-90s, I got a Fender Precision US bass for like half price in a music shop in Manchester that doesn't exist anymore. And I've just used that bass for forever. It's great. It sounds great, I think.
You want to tell us anything about this record in particular?
It's
the idea that we can compete
funnily
with
enough, for us it's
computers
a year
in
old,
some intellectual fields.
but we spent a hell of a long time
It's
working on it.
it was
So
wrong
it's
from the
quite
very
a sort of
beginning.
precious
It's just
project
it's
for us,
my dad
actually.
coming 3 o'clock in the morning down to the street
I had
to
someone
find
winning
somebody.
On the cover here, I hate to say it, it's sort of like a psychedelic Mr. Potato Head.
I can find any opponent, but not my band.
It's real sad. It's just sort of
Finding time is
We get back with this song, hopefully get it released by the end of this year.
Hi, I'm Chris from GNOD, and you're listening to Doom and Stone Latin America.
Estamos de regreso aquí en Doom and Stone Latinoamérica. Estamos platicando con Chris y con Paddy. Y bueno, la siguiente pregunta es una de las más divertidas y complejas al mismo tiempo. El disco Yo Say No to the Psycho Right Wing, Capitalism, Fascism, Industrial Death Machine es uno de mis favoritos. Todo ese nombrezote, así se llama ese maravilloso álbum. Así que les preguntamos un poco de el detrás de este álbum, cómo lo grabaron, también la inspiración y también el arte, que es algo muy importante. Y respecto a esto, Paddy dice que el proceso de grabación fue en un estudio en forma. Ya por fin trabajaron con un buen ingeniero de audio, que tenían un buen equipo. Entonces, esto ayudó a que el álbum se desarrollara de la mejor forma. Y bueno, dice que el mundo político en aquel entonces, 2016, era muy, muy diferente a lo que es hoy en día. Y es el título del disco refleja justamente ese momento. Había una campaña que se llamaba Yo Say No, solamente di no. Y era como Yo Say No to the War, solamente di no a la guerra, pero fue un fracaso masivo. Entonces ellos se burlaban y decían, solo con decir no vas a cambiar las cosas. Entonces digamos no a la pobreza, digamos no a la corrupción, digamos no a los problemas sociales. Entonces obviamente eso no iba a solucionar nada, solo era una campaña, era humo. Y bueno, respecto a esto, Chris agrega algo muy importante, ¿no? Dice, todos sabemos que los problemas en los partidos políticos no se van a resolver de la noche a la mañana, y también pues no es bueno nunca tomar un partido. Los políticos siempre van a tratar de tomar ventaja y pues bueno, él dice que se jodan los políticos, que se vayan a la mierda. Ningún sistema político nos va a salvar, ningún político va a venir a resolver todos los problemas. Así que este disco refleja el odio, refleja, no el odio, quizás el descontento, refleja el quiebre social desde mi perspectiva, y es algo que quizás es muy actual. Digo, esto es un punto de vista muy personal, pero lo vemos con nuestro gobierno actual. Todos pusimos esperanza, nuestra esperanza en este personaje, llegó al poder y no ha cambiado mucho, para ser franco. Han pasado cosas terribles, creo yo, y es el mismo mensaje, ¿no? Entonces, pues este disco Yo Say No to the Psycho Right Wing, Capitalism, Fascism, Industrial Death Machine sigue siendo vigente a pesar de que fue grabado en 2016. Así que bueno, vamos a continuar con este viaje trepidante. Escuchemos esta última parte en palabras de Chris y de Paddy. Ya regresamos aquí a Doom and Stone en Latinoamérica. I have a question related with your album Yo Say No to the Psycho Right Wing, Capitalism, Fascism, Industrial Death Machine.
Yeah.
So can you tell, it's my favorite album actually from you guys, so can you tell us a little bit the background of this album, the creative process, the recording process, and the cover art? It's really impressive for me. It's a really amazing name actually for an album.
Yeah. Well, the recording process was very, very high-end studio, working with a proper engineer. So that's why it sounds so good. It was one of the first times where we kind of went into a studio, but we did record it all live with very, very minimal overdubs. So it was all recorded live in a very, very nice studio with nice equipment. So hence it's sounding so good. And the album came about. I mean, the title, Chris came up with the title really, but we all kind of agreed on it. But it was at a time when the world was very, very different place politically to where it is now. 2015, 2016 it was when we first started writing those songs and recorded the album. So it was a very, very, very different place politically. So the title reflects that. And the title was actually a bit of a joke, really, in regards to, I don't know how old you are, Roman, but I don't know if you remember the Just Say No campaign by Just Say No to Drugs. It was like the war on drugs thing, and it was obviously a massive failure, a massive failure. and we kind of thought it would be funny to give like a government instruction, you know, like this classic thing, just say no to the right-wing capitalist, fascist, industrial death machine. So we were kind of poking fun, making fun, having a joke about our own collective apathy to really try and change things. So let's just say no, because that's going to fix everything. Do you know what I mean? When really what we were doing was trying to be clever and funny, and be ironic with the title. And I think some people understand that and some people don't understand that. Because what we were doing was kind of making a joke about our own collective apathy towards a pretty massive fucking thing, you know? Did I explain myself right there, do you think, Chris, in that regard? Or
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, we were kind of just, yeah, as you say, politically, there's a lot. It was kind of the start of what we're in the middle of now, innit? Wasn't it, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we got someone say when we came up with that title, we got someone contacted us and said, why not just say no to the totalitarian left-wing communist?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Flip it round. Yeah. And you could do it either way, because it's, you know, everyone knows the problems of the right, but there are problems with the left as well that, you know, could come out, you know.
Yeah.
So we're not saying, you know, by coming up with that title, I think we weren't trying to say we're on this side or the other side. It was just like, I don't know, trying to explain where our heads were at with like, no matter what you think, is just being no good enough. And, you know, this is what governments tell you to do.
Yeah, know, it's kind of like we were saying, fuck politics. It's a load of bullshit.
Yeah,
basically. But by doing that, we ended up making a very sort of political statement, because the irony was lost a little bit, because we thought we were being clever when really it was taken extremely sincerely by a lot of people.
I don't think any government or political system will save you. If you put your trust in that, then I think you're looking in the wrong place. You know, you're hoping that one day you'll vote in the right government that are just going to solve all the problems. I think you're kind of missing the point, really. You know, you just have to make the best of your own life and lead your own life as freely as you can, and try and do, you know, the best of it. Don't wait for a government to come and fucking sort your life out. You know what I mean? You'll be waiting forever and you'll die fucking morally bankrupt, I reckon.
I'm Urlo of UFO Mammut and Demon and Maleus also, and I'm very proud to be here at Doom and Stone Latin America.
Eso fue Skies at Red. Seguimos platicando con Nod, con Chris y con Paddy. Y pues bueno, les preguntamos sobre la vida de tour. Para las bandas de Latinoamérica siempre es un reto salir de tour, sobre todo porque no hay mucho dinero en el camino, la logística, no hay muchos venues. En el caso de México es muy muy complicado hacer propiamente un tour. No hay ni siquiera en muchos lados un promotor serio que te pueda cubrir las cosas necesarias para un show. Siempre es como, hay un bar y hay 2 bocinas y conéctate. Pero en el caso de NOD, les preguntamos cómo es la vida de tour, cómo organizan un tour, es decir, cómo buquean las fechas, el equipo, qué staff llevan y bueno, también cómo pueden tocar de manera tan intensa y no morir en el intento, el famoso burnout. Así que bueno, Paddy dice que por fortuna tienen un booking desde el año 2012, se llama Swan Booking, muy conocido, muy famoso booking, y se siente muy afortunado, dice, antes de eso usábamos MySpace, mandábamos miles de correos y pues bueno, teníamos suerte si nos contestaban y descubrieron de esta forma que si podías tener un buen show en Bélgica como banda inglesa, ellos iban ahora sí que a correr la voz. Y de repente pues ibas a tener más shows y eso iba a ser más fácil, ¿no? Pero por fortuna esos tiempos ya pasaron. Dice que ahora pues meten todo en la van, salen al camino, pero se ha vuelto muy difícil y muy caro, sobre todo por el Brexit. Ahora rentar una van cuesta muchísimo. Obviamente comparado con Latinoamérica dice que es mucho más fácil, pero al mismo tiempo se complica porque muchas bandas están en el camino y quieren ir y quieren tocar. Entonces hay como una especie de competencia. Dice Chris que para rentar o para poder financiar un tour más o menos, ellos se gastan entre 3,000 y 4,000 libras, lo cual es una suma pues fuerte de dinero. Y dice que ahora pues con este booking pueden hacer hasta 5 semanas de tour, pero bueno, hablando del famoso burnout, dice en el último tour nos pusimos muy muy enfermos, pensamos que no íbamos a poder hacer algunos shows, pero recordaban esos viejos tiempos. Dice, hace 10 años no dormíamos, nos las pasamos drogándonos, bebiendo en la fiesta y de repente nos dimos cuenta que ese no era el camino, queríamos hacer algo diferente. Entonces, desde entonces nos enfocamos en dar buenos shows y cuando piensas en eso, obviamente te da un levantón y quieres hacer el mejor show, dice, incluso en estas condiciones. Dice, somos afortunados de poder vivir de esto, siempre hay que ser agradecidos, hemos tenido una buena vida, no hay que ser una mierda y cuando no piensas en esto, estás jodido. Eso es la respuesta que tienen los muchachos de NOD respecto a la vida de tour y a los famosos burnout. Pero bueno, vamos a escuchar esto de palabras de ellos. Ya regresamos aquí a su Doom and Stone. Trépele a volar.
So, welcome back, guys. So, the next question for you is, NOD is a band that is always on tour. In Latin America, it's very challenging for a local band to organize tours due to financial issues, logistics, and a lack of venues, basically. So can you tell us how you organize your tours? I mean, the booking, the gear, the staff, and what's the key to performing such intense shows every night without burning out?
Regarding booking shows, now we have a booking agent called Swamp Booking. We've been with them since, I think, 2012, 2013. So they do all the groundwork for us on that regard. So booking the shows is, we're lucky. We have a booking agent that does that with us. Prior to working with Swamp, we did it all ourselves, mainly through MySpace back in the day, using MySpace and just having internet contacts and sending rather 1 million emails a day to try and organize a tour. And that was really hard work. But once we started to get a grounding in Europe, and basically once we started to play shows in Belgium seems to be the place. If you're a touring band in Europe or the UK, if you start doing good shows in Belgium, word seems to spread out to the rest of Europe and shows happen. But now we have a booking agent and they take care of all of that and they do a great job, called Swamp Booking, who I'm sure you probably are aware of. Gear-wise, we just hire a van and we put all of our equipment in it, and we drive to the shows wherever they are, and it's got a lot more. It's got more difficult and a little bit more tentative due to Brexit. But because of Brexit, things have become a little bit more difficult, so a lot more expensive. Diesel has become more expensive. Hiring a van has become more expensive. So, yeah, everything's just more expensive. But that's the story of everything. That's the story of inflation. That's the story of the world we live in.
Yeah.
But we are really lucky. Like you say, where you are in Latin America, there's no venues, and it's very hard to make it work financially. I mean, over here in Europe, it's obviously a lot easier. So it's not that hard. I mean, I wouldn't like to be in a band starting out nowadays, because I think it would be a lot harder maybe to get a booker and to get tours, because there's just so many bands out there.
Yeah, and there'd be so much money to lay out if you were a band starting off now. Like, we're lucky because we've been going a few years, and we managed to save up a bit of a kitty that we can use for touring, to hire vans, and I can. Now, like with a band just starting out, you'd have to lay out probably about $3 or $4 grand to do a couple of weeks in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it just depends. It depends on the look of the draw too, on like who, if people really like your music, or if a label decides to release your album and that album connects with a lot of people. There still is that factor, but there's just so much music nowadays, and I mean, touring is like pretty. We're all in our like 40s now, so we just did like a 5-week tour, and it was it's great. But you were asking about burnout. I mean, I think burnout can happen, but I don't know. For us, I don't know what the crack is. We just seem to be made for the road in some ways. Like on the last tour, all of us got sick, like pretty sick. Yeah. Four of us were really sick, to the point of where like maybe a lot of people would say, I can't do this show. But for the people who got sick in our band, the only thing that mattered in that day, well, which was so impressive, I was so impressed with everybody, was that 1 hour of doing the show. And it was like, like these guys in GNOD, they're fucking animals. They're like fucking built for the road, So, but burnout can happen. Burnout can definitely happen. We would be probably burned out if we were still doing what we did in 2010, which was never going to sleep, taking all the drugs on offer, and just drinking the bar dry every night. If we carried on doing that, we wouldn't be touring now, because we're a lot more calm now. We don't do that, The only thing that matters now is doing that hour and a half on the stage and playing a really good show. That's the buzz now. But I think if you're just getting fucking smashed all the time, you're gonna burn out, unless you're like fucking Lemmy, or unless you're getting the best quality drugs, and even getting a bit of sleep in between.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but it's at the same time, it is kind of easy, because the drives are long, and anything can happen, anything can go wrong on the road. But at the same time, it's a bit of a charmed life, really, isn't it? Just driving around, playing music to people every night. I mean, you have to kind of remember that as well, like be like, wow, I am actually really blessed. I'm doing the thing I've always wanted to do, and to have always a bit of background sort of gratitude for where you are and what you're doing. Always remembering that it's the good life, really, because if you forget that, and you start complaining, and you start forgetting that you're doing what you love to do, and you start feeling like shit about it, then it's fucked, It just turns into like it turns into a job. Then turns into just like any shit job that we all have to do to make money.
Yeah, beautiful words. I mean, I totally understand. For us as Mexicans, we traveled for a second time to Europe. We don't have a booking agency. We don't have a bank. We don't have gear. So basically, we travel in public transportation for this tour. And it was really crazy, to see how the people enjoy your music, and that's the thing, that's why we are doing this sacrifice, because of course it's not cheap for us. It goes 20 times more to go there, so it's really amazing. I mean, see you to play, guys. It was really a big inspiration for us, and it remind us what we are doing this sacrifice. It's not about fame, it's not about the money, it's about art, it's about friendship, and so you say something very special. So yeah, thank you for that kind of words.
Oh, no worries, man. I mean, it's just the truth of it, really. So yeah, and I mean, it's amazing that you guys fucking make so much effort to do the thing, like coming all the way over from Mexico, relying on a backline being there for you, and relying on I'm kind of always stepping into the unknown. At least for us, we have a certain amount of things that we know are happening, and you guys are stepping way more into the unknown with it. So like, that takes balls. So like, well done, you. That's an inspiration to us, really.
Sure.
A little reminder to us that we have it quite easy compared to you. So what you guys do is inspiring to us too.
I'll make it for the sun set. Hi, I'm Ethan from Primitive Man, and you are listening to Doomed and Stoned Latino America.
Doomed and Stoned Latinoamérica. Tenemos un par de preguntas todavía en la bolsa para GNOD, así que vamos a traducirlas. Y bueno, pueden escuchar esta entrevista y otras más en Doomed and Stoned Latinoamérica. Recuerden, tenemos Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Ahí pueden escuchar los programas que estamos lanzando, los programas de Doomed and Stoned, Acid Nightmare. También está Electric Church, el otro rock mexicano con el legendario periodista David Cortés. Visiten nuestras redes sociales. Si tienen una banda, pueden tomar un cuestionario y este cuestionario lo estamos publicando en nuestra página. Así que bueno, tenemos muchas cosas ahí. Nuestro Bandcamp con compilaciones gratis. Visiten doomandstonelatino.com. Y bueno, vamos a cerrar esta entrevista con estas preguntas. Para las bandas latinoamericanas, siempre es un sueño visitar Europa, Estados Unidos y tocar en festivales como Radborn, Desert Fest, el Psycho Las Vegas o el Sonic Wave. GNOD ha tenido la oportunidad de participar en muchos de estos festivales, así que la pregunta es, ¿les queda algún lugar o algún festival en el que les gustaría tocar? Han hecho casi todos. Inmediatamente Paddy dice, por supuesto, Japón y China. Me encantaría ir también a México, a Sudamérica. Hemos recibido algunas ofertas de Estados Unidos, pero financieramente es imposible. Cuesta como 10,000 libras poder venir a Estados Unidos y hacerlo de la manera correcta. Refírense a los papeles para trabajar a las visas. Y dice que ellos no quieren solamente tocar 2 festivales, sentarse en una van, viajar 10 horas para tocar para 5 personas. Creo que los planes no van en esa dirección. Y bueno, antes del COVID dice que iban a tocar en Rusia, en San Petersburgo y Moscú, pero obviamente el COVID y el tema de la guerra hizo que esto no pasara y no pasará. Obviamente, vemos las noticias, sabemos que Rusia es un país políticamente incorrecto, así que nos hubiera encantado ir ahí, dice, por supuesto, Paddy. Y bueno, finalmente dice que tienen estos planes para ir a Israel y Palestina. Rush Records, que es una muy buena disquera, está gestionando esto, pero todavía no está todo seguro. Dice que les encantaría dar ese paso a lo desconocido, ir allá, hacer jams con la gente local, a encontrarse, sería una gran experiencia. Y bueno, siempre queremos conocer más a nuestros artistas y por esto hay una pregunta nueva en estos cuestionarios que siempre diseñamos. De manera personal, aparte de la música, obviamente, ¿cuáles son los valores que rigen la vida de Paddy y de Chris? En otras palabras, ¿qué acciones son esenciales para convertirnos o ser mejores personas, mejores seres humanos? Paddy dice, lo voy a leer, personalmente hay cosas que ya no hago como beber o drogarme, trato de rodearme de gente que me ayude a estar bien. Creo que entre más viejo te pones, mejor las cosas pueden ser y son mejores las cosas que puedes ofrecer también hacia las personas. Si dejas tu burbuja de pensar en ti mismo y sales de ella, pues bueno, puedes estar ahí para los demás y eso es muy bueno. Eso es lo que inspira y me inspira también a ser una mejor persona, estar al servicio de los demás. Y bueno, Chris dice que es algo similar a Paddy, dice que siempre busca algo, o sea, Paddy siempre busca algo más espiritual, dice Chris. Yo no soy tan espiritual, pero aprecio mucho las cosas que tengo. Trabajo constantemente, me mantengo siempre enfocado con los pies en la tierra. Dice, practico jiu-jitsu brasileño y bueno, los principios filosóficos ayudan mucho, ver las oportunidades. Suena muy hippie, pero bueno, es sin la flor y bueno, Paddy ahí se ríe un poco y lo bromea y dice, eres un hippie de los 80s y bueno, se ríe todo el mundo, ¿no? Eso es una muy, muy buena pregunta. Y también les preguntamos, ¿tienen algún consejo para las bandas jóvenes, para los niños, adolescentes que van empezando una banda? Chris dice tajantemente, no lo tengo. Y Paddy dice, no lo hagas, pero si lo haces, escucha siempre folk y bueno, mantente siempre escuchando esto. Esa es la clave. Si te aburres, no estás hecho para esto. Obviamente, ambas respuestas son una broma. La respuesta real, y es la que da Chris, dice, tengo una anécdota para ti. Dice, al fin de semana estuve con el hijo de mi novia, 13 años, y juntos tocamos sintetizadores. Me di cuenta que si tienes el equipo y la guía correcta, puedes hacer cosas increíbles desde joven. Mi consejo es, haz las cosas, pero no seas una mierda. No seas una mierda de persona, una mierda de músico. Y bueno, ella se refiere mucho a su escena local. Siempre encuentra tu lenguaje, no emules a nadie y por supuesto empieza a ver cómo hacen las cosas los demás. Quizás te puede inspirar, pero copiar no es el camino. Siempre Tienes que usar tu imaginación, creer en ti y trabajar duro. Gran consejo de Chris. La verdad es que me encantó esa parte. Y bueno, finalmente los planes de GNOD a futuro. ¿Qué va a ser la banda a futuro? Y esta es una de las partes más interesantes y que quizás se vuelven un shock de cierta forma de realidad para todos los que están del otro lado y son músicos o están en algún proyecto. Paddy dice, obviamente vamos a seguir haciendo lo mismo, grabar discos, pero también vamos a buscar un nuevo sonido. Siempre tratamos de cambiar, experimentar. Quizás iremos hacia el camino del noise y lo vamos a abordar de diferentes formas. Posiblemente la gente que ama al GNOD de ahora ya no lo haga, pero sabemos que habrá gente que va a estar ahí y descubriremos nuevas personas. GNOD nunca se detendrá, GNOD solamente cambiará. Tocaremos más shows y lanzaremos cassettes. Y bueno, Chris dice, tenemos que cambiar, no queremos tocar las mismas canciones en la misma forma siempre. O sea, eso es algo aburrido, va en contra de lo que creemos. Y bueno, finalmente, Paddy dice, tenemos un sistema, bueno, en el pasado, después de Radborn, contexto, ellos tenían un sistema de sonido enfocado a la música electrónica, quisieron reinventarse. Y en ese momento mucha gente se fue, pero mucha gente también llegó. Dice que ellos siempre están conscientes de las personas y por eso siempre quieren cambiar y ofrecer algo diferente. Y eso es una reflexión increíble porque es muy fácil hacer lo mismo muchas veces. O sea, no voy a decir nombres, hay muchas bandas que tienen el mismo sonido y no cambian y es lo de siempre, es la vieja fórmula. ¿Y qué chiste tiene eso? No lo sé si en términos artísticos valga la pena seguir repitiéndote a ti mismo por temor al cambio, al fracaso. No lo sé. GNOD lo hace y eso es una reflexión increíble. Finalmente, Paddy dice que pueden encontrar toda su música en Bandcamp, suscribirse a su Patreon y bueno, también ahí suben muchas cosas increíbles. Si ustedes quieren apoyar realmente a GNOD, pueden escribirles un correo electrónico, comprar su música en GNOD We Trust. Es GNOD, we de nosotros y trust de trust, @hotmail.com.uk. Ese es el correo, se los vamos a dejar en los comentarios. Pero bueno, ellos se mantienen de esto, viven de esto, así que ustedes pueden apoyar a la banda y ellos les pueden hacer un paquete especial. O sea, imagínense qué banda se dedica a hacerles un paquete especial a ustedes y se los mandan hasta su casa. Eso es GNOD, eso es un colectivo y eso es increíble. Finalmente, Chris dice, manténganse fuertes y sanos. Y bueno, Paddy dice, con esto cerramos, incluso cuando todo parece no estar bien, ok, lo está. Y tiene toda la razón. Gracias por habernos acompañado en este Doom and Stone Latinoamérica. Nos vemos en nuestra próxima entrevista. Se viene Doblor para todos ustedes la próxima semana. Muy atentos. Abrazos donde quieran que estén. De mañana, noche, día. Ya se la sabe como cada semana. Gózala.
Yeah. So related with this, Latin American bands and I guess bands from other places always dream to travel to Europe, to the United States to perform at festivals like Desert Fest, Radborn, or Sonic Whip. You have the opportunity to participate in also all the festivals. So at this point, do you have any festival or countries where you dream to performing?
Japan would be cool. China would be fucking amazing. I'd love to go and play some shows in China. I would love to come and play I would love to come and play the States and go down into Mexico and any shows around North America and South America would be really cool because we've never been there. And I mean, we've had the offers to go out and play in America many times, but we can't make America work financially for us, you know. Yeah. To go and play America for GNOD would cost us like 10, 15, 20,000 pounds or something.
Wow.
To do it right, to do it properly, to do it the way it should be done. But even then, saying that, we'd only be going around and playing we might play 2 festivals to a few hundred people, and the rest of the time we'd be playing dive bars to I don't know, a bunch of American people who don't care. So it would be like starting out all over again, which is kind of exciting. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of going to somewhere like America, driving in a van for 12 hours to go and play a 40-minute set. And I don't know. But yeah, I'm digressing a little bit there. Japan would be cool, but also more into Eastern Europe, even China, even Russia. We were supposed to go and play Russia before COVID, we had a couple of shows lined up there, and I was really excited about playing in Moscow and in St. Petersburg, because we have some hardcore fans in Russia, and I don't know anything about Russia. I really don't. I only know the shit I read about in the news or stuff I hear about in the news. And I know a few Russian people who I've met over the years, and they're all really sweet people. So it would be very interesting to go there and just see what the vibe was like, you know. But that'll probably never happen now, because Russia is like blacklisted, isn't it? So it's one of those. If we went and played Russia, we'd be fucking cancelled. That was it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We got an offer to play. We got an offer to play Israel and Palestine as well at some point.
Wow.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Yeah, that's something that was supposed to happen this year and is on the cards to happen in 2024. Is to go over to Israel with this record label called Rash Records. Really, really fantastic little label. Great crew. Really, really out there music. Like some really exciting music coming from there. And so they do shows in Israel and across the wall in Palestine, and they try and organize shows for Palestinians and Israelis. And yeah, it sounds that'd be super exciting shows, like really, really good. And that would be stepping into the unknown as well. Like, and the idea would be to go there and not just play NOD shows, but to play gigs with musicians in the local areas, to just like go and do shows with them, do jams or whatever, form a little band for a day and go and do a gig. So yeah, hopefully that will happen in the future.
Hopefully sounds amazing. And yeah, talking about United States, yeah, it's complicated. I mean, we live next to the United States, but we can go there because visas are super expensive. And of course, it's complicated for us to get a visa. I have a tourist visa, but man, it costs me a lot of effort. It's they hate us basically. So Africans hate the Mexicans. So, yeah, that's
it's fucking it's crazy, isn't it? The Americans hate the Mexicans, and there's probably, if it wasn't for the Mexicans, there wouldn't be a fucking America. You know what I mean? It's hilarious, really. Yeah.
Totally.
If all I imagine if all the Mexicans and even just like South Americans, if they all left America in the morning, fucking place would fucking fall apart. You know? But.
Well, and I have a more personal question for you, unrelated to music. So, in your daily life, what values govern your action? In other words, what actions are essential for us to become a better human beings?
Wow. That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. Every day is like, every day is a struggle to not be a knobhead, really. If you know what I mean by a knobhead, every day's a struggle to not be a dickhead. I mean, for me personally, I have a certain amount of practices that I do to try and keep me grounded, and I don't drink anymore, and I don't get high really anymore, and I try to surround myself with people that are good people to be around, and people that will help me to stay grounded and stay with it, you know. And I think, I don't know, the older I get, the more I think that the best thing to do is to be available for people, to be of service in some kind, to get out of your own bubble and your own sort of over identification with yourself and your own shit, and to go out and be available for other people. You know, I'm saying that I don't always behave like that, but it's something to aspire to for me personally, is to be more of service and be less selfish.
Yeah, that's amazing. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, a similar thing, really. Although I'd say my life in that area is probably not as I wouldn't say structured, but Paddy's always looking for these improvements to his life a lot. He seems to be a lot more spiritual than I am in that sense, and a lot more adventurous in discovering that side of himself. I think for me, I just try and be grateful for what I've got, and seeing that often, I think, makes you appreciate everything and everyone more, you know. Also just kind of journey of self-discovery stuff, really. I mean, it's a constant work to kind of, again, not be a dickhead and keep grounded, keep focused, keep grateful, appreciative. And I like recently I've just started training to be a support worker. So I've decided to change my work life, really, from kind of doing just bits of shitty jobs like office work and bar work and stuff to something a bit more meaningful and a bit more helpful. Mm-hmm. And I just keep it like that, really. It's not really that structured. I don't really, like I don't do a practice every day, although, you know, I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I train that now and again with a guy that I do training with. And the principles of that are really good as well. I mean, there's the art form of, the grappling art form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it's also philosophy as well, where nothing's ever really lost. There's only opportunities, and you've got to learn to see the opportunities. Don't focus on what's lost, because there's always more opportunities, I'm just a bit of a hippie, really.
Yeah, I know.
But not like a flowery, I love nature hippie. Just a kind of like whatever comes along, and I'll deal with it when it happens, kind. That's the bad. Is that the bad hippie or the good hippie? Depends on your perspective,
Yeah.
It's what the hippies turned in. It's what the hippies turned into in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an 80s hippie.
Yeah. So the context in Mexico for me is support the local business, support your neighbors, because life is really, really tough. And I work in an NGO. I work with volunteers. We build houses for disadvantaged families in some indigenous communities. So that's why I ask these kind of questions, because for me it's very important to realize the good things that we have, and I mean, Mexico, when you think in Mexico and UK, of course, the difference is, it's first world, third world, but even in that condition, you have good things. So that's why it's very important to realize how lucky we are, basically.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So
nice.
I have two more questions for you guys. And the next one is, could you give us some advice to young people who are starting a band?
No.
Yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I think. Well,
no, I would. No, my advice would be listen to the fall, and just keep on listening to the fall, and listen to all of their albums, and just keep on listening to the fall, and if you can, don't listen to any other band for several years. Just listen to the fall. That would be my advice to any young band starting out nowadays. It sounds very simplistic, but it's the gateway. It's the gateway. Because if you stick with it, then something will happen. And if you go, nah, this is shit, then you don't really mean it. You don't really mean it.
That's a really
yeah. For me, quite interestingly, I've just spent the weekend with like my girlfriend's got a 13-year-old daughter who's into music, and she was like, oh, you know, I want to play some synths and stuff and sing. So I took a little recording device down, plugged her a mic in, got a keyboard kind of going. Her mum was playing the keyboard as well, my girlfriend. And it was just enjoyable to see someone use that equipment and be like, wow, you can do it like this, you can do this, you know. I don't know what my point was there, whether it relates to young people starting bands, but
No,
I mean, just do it. Just stay interested. Yeah, stay interested. Yeah. Do it. Don't be shit.
That's such a Manchester thing. That's such a Manchester thing to say. Yeah, just do it, but don't be shit.
Yeah. So find your own language and don't try and emulate. You know, find your, because everyone's got their own language with music. I think it's the amazing thing about music. It's like, you know, you can build your own language with it, and you don't have to, you know, like I used to. I look at Angus Young and think, fucking hell, how the fucking hell is he doing that? You know, it's just, he was just alien. How could he play all that stuff without missing a note? It sounds heavy as hell, and he's just moshing and dancing around. It's like, if you're looking at that and trying to do that, you know, yeah, you might get there one day, but God, it's, you know, for me, it was just like overwhelming. It was just like, you know, how do you do that? But he must have started somewhere, and he just got into that, and that was his thing, you know. Yeah. And you can find that within yourself. I think you can find your own thing. You know, you might not be able to dance around the stage, but you might be able to, you know, come up with something else. I mean, I can't come up with a valid example, but, you know, use your imagination, believe in yourself, you know, just keep working at your thing and make your own language. And
embrace limitations.
Yeah.
Embrace limitations.
Yeah, totally. And find like-minded people. Like the thing about, I think when I met Paddy, I was just like, oh, he's kind of on a similar level, and you know, he's kind of like into loud stuff as well, and he likes similar bands, and you know, and there was stuff that I liked that he didn't like, and stuff that he liked that I didn't like, but there was a common connection there along the way, which is still kind of the core of our musical relationship, really. I mean, we can just get in a room and just fuck around, and we'll come up with something. You know, that's quite rare, I think, to find someone who you can just jam with, or find a group of people you can just jam with, and you know, you're all enjoying it. You're thinking, yeah, this is worthwhile. You know, not like, oh, we should sound like this. You know, I was in a few bands where there was this pressure to sound like a certain thing, and we felt bad because we couldn't do it, or one of the people couldn't do it, or something. Usually me, you know. And yeah, with Paddy and with GNOD, it kind of, I didn't need to feel that I couldn't, you know, again, embracing limitations, just like, all right, I can play one or two notes for a really long time, you know, and then that became a kind of part of the sound, really, you know.
That's amazing. That's a really good advice, because at the end, you need to find your own way, your own sound, and that's what we try, you know, because especially in this kind of music, stoner doom is very generic, you know. Everybody wants to sound like Electric Wizard. I mean, the name of our band is because Electric Wizard, but we don't believe in witches and stuff like that. We believe in science, for example. That's the idea of the band, is to teach to the people science through the music, specifically focus on stuff from the space, you know. So that's the idea of Juan since the beginning. So of course the name is more like a witches and devils and stuff like that, but we realize that we need to do something different, and that's a really, really good advice, Chris.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I have the last question for you guys, and because I know it's late there. So what plans does GNOD have for the near future?
Well, yeah, more of the same, but in a different way. Yeah, we're in the process of putting a new album together, and we're in the process of working on a new sound. And I mean, we've always kind of branched off from what you've seen, the big band, as we refer to as the big band. We've always had another couple of offshoots that we usually refer to as NOD, R&D, NOD, Research and Development. And that would usually be me and Chris, or me and Chris and one other person, just playing shows or recording albums that are really different from what most people might expect from NOD. Like, there's a whole bunch of albums and cassettes out there of NOD and NOD R&D that maybe you're not aware of them, Roman. I don't think most people are, that are really, really, for want of a better term, experimental. A lot more experimental than when you see the big band playing. So I think we've hit a point where, with the noise rock thing and that sound, we've kind of maybe taken it as far as we can in some ways. I think so anyway. So we're going to start fresh, really. We're going to approach it from a different angle and see what can happen. And that might take us a year or two to hone together. We don't know. But we're going to put out the next album, and then we're going to work on a new sound and see what happens, and probably lose a lot of people who really enjoy NOD now, the NOD big band sound. We might lose some of those people because of how we change, or we might not, we'll see. But just for us, I guess the future for NOD is just to evolve, really, and to carry on evolving. Like, NOD will never stop. It will just change. And so that's what's happening now.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, I want to say first, thank you guys, because you teach us a lot as a band for Vinum Sabati. Second, because you try to reinvent the band, and it's not easy because it will be more easy to say, oh, we are famous, we have this sound, and yeah, we're going to live doing this the whole life, like many bands. I'm not going to say names, but it's really amazing you want to change, and yeah, congratulations for that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really do it any other way. We just kind of bore ourselves with our own music after a bit. You do get bored. I mean, when you do a whole tour of a set of songs, and then like the next tour comes around, it's like, oh, we've got to change it up. We've got to do something different. Even the songs, even if we play the same song, we've got to make it sound different in some way, So it's not, again, it's like, it's something that's forced upon us. It doesn't feel like a conscious decision. It's just like something within that makes us change it up.
We've always done it. Done it. In 2012, we basically sold all of our guitars and our amplifiers and invested in buying a building and buying a 10K sound system and some synthesizers, and we completely reinvented NOD as this electronic sort of punk band and it was quite difficult because a lot of it was a lot of work, and we kind of lost maybe a lot of the crowd that we had built up from 2009 to 2012 touring. And we just played Roadburn, and we'd done like this really good show at Roadburn, and the next year we toured as this like electronic band, and I think it kind of weirded people out. A lot of people, it kind of just weirded them out. Some people really loved it, and they're the people that still come to our shows now, and so it's just something that we do. We just like to change things up for ourselves, but also we don't just do it for ourselves. We do it because we're totally aware of the crowd and the people that come to the shows and the people that buy the albums and like the music. We're very aware of them, and we want to give them something different and to go on a journey with them as well, to take them with us on the ride. So that's what we'll be doing, and I think we're going to have a few releases coming out as NOD, or indeed there'll be a few other little sneaky releases. There's always the album that comes out every year on Rocket, or Rocket's like our label, so we always have an album that comes out. But there's always something sneaking out on the periphery of those albums. So for the more sort of adventurous and interested NOD fan, or somebody that might be more interested in the weird shit that we do, it's always good to keep an eye on our Bandcamp or on whatever, on our social media, to see what other little cassettes or CDRs or whatever we're sneaking out there for people to hear. And also people can also sign up to our Patreon. The cheapest you can sign up to the Patreon for is like $3 a month, although I'm trying to find a way to make it $1 a month so that we can get more people involved, because on our Patreon we share loads of music, like archive music and stuff that's never been released, that's never got out there, rehearsals. So you get to have a really, really broad view of the evolution of the band. And the patrons that are signed up, I think we have like 40 or 50 patrons, and they love it because we send them like all this stupid shit that we've done, and I think it's quite interesting for the hardcore NOD fans, those crazy people. I don't know.
We always try and put a little story behind it as well. So we try and remember what was happening at the time, or who was part of the recording, or why we did it. There's always a bit of background we try and add in when we can remember to do so, or when we can remember it.
Yeah, so it's just all about evolution, man. It's the whole fucking thing is like, change, you constantly change. Although saying that, right, for example, if somebody came and said, here's a tour where you can play NOD Dropout with White Hills. Here's a tour where if you play that album, and here's like a month-long tour, and you get paid really well to do it, we'd fucking do it. Do you know what I mean? Because it would be nice to play. It would be nice to play that album, and also it's always nice to get paid. Do you know what I mean? So we don't have any set rules in not like revisiting the past or whatever. But it wouldn't be purely a nostalgia tip, but it would be interesting to do. And also some of the music like that Dropout album seems to have connected with a hell of a lot of people. Like, it seems to be like one of the most best loved NOD albums, and we get people ask us all the time, would we ever play it live again? And yeah, we would, but it would have to be the right conditions to make it happen, So we're open to anything really, but evolution is the name of the game, really.
That's amazing, guys, and it's really good. Let's see what's next for you guys. I'm very, very excited to see the evolution of the band. But well, guys, it's time to say goodbye, to say adios. So some final words for the fans in Mexico, Latin America.
Look after yourselves, and look after each other, and if there's any people out there in Mexico and South America that enjoy the NOD music, and you can't afford to buy it, then please send us an email at innodwetrust@hotmail.co.uk, which I'm sure Roman will make available. You can share our email address along with this podcast if you want. And people, if you can't afford to buy our music, and you want to listen to it, please send us an email, and we'll send you a little surprise package of some music, a little South America special. We'll send you a South America special compilation.
Nice,
so
nice.
Get in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Any final words, Chris?
Just stay strong, stay safe, look after yourself and each other, and everything will get okay.
Even, here's a good one. Here's a good one that I've been saying a lot recently. I'm been saying it to my lovely wife a lot recently, which is even when everything is not okay, everything is okay.
Yeah.
Hey, brothers and sisters in Latin America, this is Matte from My Sleeping Karma, and you guys listening to Doomed and Stoned. Keep it up. All the best. Bye.